Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing an updated 2028 presidential election prediction. In this video, I'm doing the matchup of Kamala Harris, the former Vice President of the United States, versus JD Vance, the current Vice President of the United States. Now I wanted to do this video today, as just a few days ago we got the news that Kamala Harris will not be running for governor of California in 2026, and this has obviously sparked the speculation that Kamala Harris may be running for president again in 2028. Now, obviously, we are in August of 2025. 2028 is a long ways away, and how the country is doing by then is going to be very hard, if not impossible, to predict at this point in time. Things could be going great for the country, things could be going not so great, and those will have very huge ramifications for the 2028 election. But I'm doing this election prediction for 2028 as of right now, as how I think this election would go. Now, Harris in the early polling thus far in 2028, though she's seen her lead diminish a lot, she does still lead in the race to the White House polling average, whereas JD Vance is the clear leader on the Republican side, and if he runs, he will be the Republican nominee. Starting with the safe states, I think we see this election be more of what 2024 was, but in defense for Kamala Harris, I do think that really she can only do better than how 2024 went, seeing as everything with 2024 was after 4 years of a Joe Biden presidency, where President Biden at the time was very unpopular in the polls in the final months of his presidency. And you saw pretty much President Trump make gains literally in every single part of the country. Just comparing 2020 to 2024, literally every area in the country except Nebraska's 1st congressional district moved towards Donald Trump. So after 4 years of a Trump presidency, even if President Trump is holding decent approval ratings, we're probably going to see the Democrats at least make some incremental gains going into 2028. And how I think that starts out with, for the safe states, we're going to start with Kamala Harris. I think she wins Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii, all by the safe Democratic margin. I think we're also going to see some states that were narrowly under 15%, which is the safe threshold, move back to the safe side in 2028. I think Illinois will go safe for the Democrats. Washington, D.C. will be safe, unsurprisingly, as well as the state of Maryland, the state of Delaware, the state of New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine's 1st congressional district. I think will all be safe again in 2028. Now, in a few cases, some of these states were under 15 points by a little bit in 2024. But again, with going from 2024 to 2028, I think we see Harris, or whoever the Democrats nominate, make some improvements in these safe areas especially. I think we'll see these areas move a little bit more to the Democratic side from 2024. Now, there are some states I think J.D. Vance would win by a safe margin. And these are going to be the states of Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, the state at large and its 3rd district, the state of Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and South Carolina, all of which I'm very confident are going to be safe Republican states. Now that puts Vance up at 121, Harris is at 167. Now we're going to get into the states that I call likely, which are in between 5 and 15% margin of victory. These are states that I'm very confident in forecasting how they will go for 2028. Can't totally be for sure, but are very, very confident at how they will go. And these are states based off the 2024 map where I think we see Harris make a lot of the percentage difference here. You see Colorado being an 11-point win, New Mexico a 6-point win, even New Jersey being a 5.9% win. Unless President Trump is doing super well come 2028, or Kamala Harris is doing super, super bad in the polling, I think we're going to see a little bit of Democratic improvement in these states. So I think Colorado goes likely Democratic, New Mexico goes likely Democratic, New Jersey goes likely Democratic, and the state of Virginia goes likely Democratic as well. These are all 4 states that were likely Democratic wins for Harris in 2024, and I do think they would be again, but I do think the margins will be a little bit more for the Democrats, adding about 1.5% to 2% in this race. Also, just to give you an idea, President Trump won the popular vote in 2024 over Kamala Harris by roughly about 1.5%. I think we're probably going to see at best for J.D. Vance probably around a 0.5% win for him on the popular vote, if not even better for Kamala Harris in this election. I don't think we're going to see Vance win by the same numbers that President Trump did. But that would get Harris up to 209 of the states I'm super confident are going to be likely Democratic wins, meaning I think in between 10 and 15% for sure on the likely Democratic side. We also have some states for the Republicans I think are in that category, one of which is certainly the state of Florida. It may break 15% come 2028, but I do think it remains just a little bit under, around 14.5%. The state of Texas, I think, would also be in this category of likely for the Republicans, around 10 to 15%, and the state of Alaska would also be in that category. That puts Vance up to 194. Then we also have some House districts to talk about as well, where Nebraska's first district would go in the likely Republican category. And then that's probably going to be, second district I think would also be in this category as well, around that 10% margin. That puts Vance up to 196. Now we have a few more likely calls, but these are areas that I think might be around that 10-point or a little bit under margin of victory. The first one's going to be the state of Maine, where we saw Kamala Harris win this state in 2024 by about 6.9%. I think for Vance versus Harris, we could see this be a race around 7 or 8 point margin of victory, maybe even 9 point for Kamala Harris in this election. Then we have the second congressional district, which nearly was a likely win for Kamala Harris in 2024, is 4.7%. I would bet pretty much everything we're going to see this district go more Democratic in 2028, where Harris wins it by more than 5 points, around 6.5, where I'm currently forecasting it at this time. Next, we have the state of Minnesota. This was the running mate Tim Walz's home state, a 4.2% win for Kamala Harris, and I think we see this state go more Democratic in 2028 for Harris versus Vance than it was in 2024. This puts it up to 222 for Kamala Harris. Now we have some more likely states as well for the Republicans in Iowa and Ohio for J.D. Vance. These are two states that were likely Republican wins in 2024. 13 points in Iowa, 11 points in Ohio. I think we're going to see these be around 10% or so in these states for 2028. That puts Harris at 222. Vance is at 219. The rest of these states, I think, are either going to be toss-up states or at very least are worth the conversation of having. Now, the state of New Hampshire is very interesting because New Hampshire was a state in 2024 that only voted for Kamala Harris by 2.8% against Donald Trump. Now, in 2020, it voted for Joe Biden by 7.4% against Donald Trump. But in 2016, even though there was a lot of third-party vote, it voted for Hillary Clinton by 0.37. New Hampshire is a very interesting state. It's been pretty reliable, even by smaller margins. It's been a Democratic win at the presidential level, going all the way back to the year 2000. And for 2028, I don't think New Hampshire is going to be a red state, but I'm very skeptical on what the margin of victory will be. Because when I thought it was going to be a competitive state in 2020, it ended up being a likely Democratic state. When I thought it'd be a likely Democratic state in 2024, it was a lean Democratic state. So I'm really not sure how New Hampshire is going to swing in 2028. Does it move more to the right like it did in 2024? Does it move more to the left in 2028? We're going to have to wait and see how it all goes. Right now, I'm putting New Hampshire just barely in the lean Democratic category, right around a 4.5 point victory for Kamala Harris over J.D. Vance. But that's a state I'm very fascinated to watch and see how that state will trend going into 2028. Now we're going to move west to the state of Nevada. Nevada voted for Donald Trump by roughly 3.1% over Kamala Harris in 2024, after the state voted for Joe Biden by 2.4% in 2020. This will also be a very big indicator for 2028 at how J.D. Vance is doing in comparison to President Trump in the state of Nevada from 2024 to 2028. I think in this one, we're not going to see Vance win the state by 3 points. I do think the state has certainly moved a lot to the Republican direction in the last 4 years. I think we're going to see J.D. Vance carry the state of Nevada, but I think we're going to see him win it by a little bit less than that 3.1%, around a 2-point victory or so in the state of Nevada. In the state of Arizona, Arizona voted for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris by 5.5%. President Trump made a lot of big gains in Maricopa County, winning it by 3.5%. Now, again, this is an area that I think is going to swing a little bit back towards the Democrats after a very hard swing to the Republicans in 2024. I think Arizona, the margin of victory will also be smaller than 2024. I will think it will be a lean Republican win, though, in the state of Arizona, under 5 points, around 4.5 point victory for J.D. Vance in the state of Arizona. You could also bet we're probably going to have to wait at least a few days for all the votes to come in on Arizona like it has the last few presidential cycles. This puts Vance up to 236, Kamala Harris at 226. Now we have the state of Georgia, whose polls close at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and one of the most important early tests of how the candidates are doing in this matchup. This state only voted for Donald Trump by 2.2% in 2024 after it shocked everyone by voting for Joe Biden by 0.24% in 2020. I think how Georgia's going is going to be a very big indicator of how J.D. Vance and Kamala Harris are doing in 2028. And I do think this is a state Kamala Harris is going to cut into the margins of 2024. Now, a 2.2% win for Harris, if the state moved 1 point based on the national popular vote, it would move to about a 1.2% J.D. Vance win. And that's currently where I'm forecasting it right now. I'm questioning putting it maybe in the tilt category, being under 1 point, but I do think J.D. Vance would be able to hold on just a little bit to the gains made by President Trump in 2024 to win the state of Georgia by a little bit over 1 point. But Georgia is certainly a state to watch for 2028, where the Democrats won it in 2020, very competitive in 2024. If the Democrats are winning Georgia in 2028, it would certainly not be a shock to me whatsoever. Now the state of North Carolina. North Carolina is going to be very interesting to watch for 2028 as the Senate race in 2026 with Roy Cooper and Michael Whatley. This could be a rare instance of the Democrats maybe being able to elect a Democratic senator. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. At the presidential level, it voted for Donald Trump by 3.2% in 2024 after it voted for Trump by 1.3% in 2020. Now, again, I think 2028 will likely be a little bit more of a better red year than 2020 was a very good night for the Democrats. So I think North Carolina, for now, at the presidential level, will continue to retain its lean Republican margin, but I would not really be too shocked to see North Carolina being more competitive than it was in 2024. This puts J.D. Vance at 268, Kamala Harris 226, and what's looking like a repeat of 2024. But hold on. I did say that I think Kamala Harris is going to make some gains off the 2024 electoral map. Thus far, aside from the margins, she hasn't made any electoral vote gains yet. So far, every state she won in 2024, she's won in 2028. All she's done is had smaller margins of victories in the states that J.D. Vance has won, and larger margin of victories in a lot of the blue states that she's won. But the Rust Belt is where I think things could actually change a little bit. In 2024, Donald Trump won the state of Wisconsin by 0.86% against Kamala Harris. In 2020, it voted for Joe Biden by 0.63% against Donald Trump. So it's a state that certainly is willing to vote for both Republican and Democrat, and was the narrowest result of all the battleground states in 2024. 2026 is going to be a very big year for Wisconsin. In the midterm elections, both a governor's election that is up is going to be very important to watch, and this is also very important. The House races that are up, especially in the 3rd District in Wisconsin, may also be a big indicator at how Democrats are responding to President Trump in 2024 in the state of Wisconsin. I think we see Kamala Harris be able to move enough numbers here and enough voters here in the state of Wisconsin, and very specifically make some gains in these areas surrounding Dane County, which is where Madison is, and Columbia and Sauk, Iowa, Greene, and Rock. These counties are going to be very key to watch. I actually think we see Kamala Harris flip the state of Wisconsin in 2028. And I think she would win it by under 1 point, but I think we see Wisconsin flip towards Harris. Now, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania have voted in unison in every election going back a very long time now. I think you have to go back super long time the last time that did not happen. I know through the 2000s it did, 1996 it did, 92 it did, 1988 was the last time they did not vote all in unison. And it'd be kind of a bold statement to say that won't happen again in 2028. But I do think Kamala Harris will win the state of Wisconsin. Michigan is where things are going to get very interesting, because Michigan voted for Donald Trump by 1.4% in 2024. After back in 2020, it voted for Joe Biden by 2.8%. So Michigan's going to be a state that's very close in 2028. And it's certainly a state, Kamala Harris, if she makes enough significant gains from 2024 to 2028, she certainly could win the state of Michigan. Now, my rankings personally right now have J.D. Vance winning the state of Michigan by 0.2%. So by the absolute thinnest of margins, J.D. Vance very narrowly holds on to the state of Michigan. But this is going to be a very close and important state that shows Kamala Harris making a lot of improvements in the state of Michigan. But I do think J.D. Vance very narrowly holds on and gets him over 270. Now we have the state of Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes, where J.D. Vance, or President Trump, defeated Kamala Harris here by 1.7%. After 2020, where Joe Biden won it by 1.2%. Now again, I think this is going to be super close. I think it's going to be under 1 point, but I think J.D. Vance does narrowly win the state of Pennsylvania at this current point in time by under that 1 point margin, around that 0.7, 0.8%. So right now I have JD Vance winning with 302, Kamala Harris getting 236, with Harris flipping the state of Wisconsin, going from red to blue from 2024 to 2028, but making a lot of, I would say, gains and such in a lot of safe Democratic states and some Democratic likely states as well, and enough changing in the vote to flip Wisconsin. That's how I currently have 2028 going between JD Vance and Kamala Harris right now. This is my prediction as of August 2025. Again, we'll have to wait and see how it all develops over the next 4 years and how things will change, as I'm sure they will, going from now until November of 2028. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below what you think would happen between Kamala Harris and JD Vance if they faced off in 2028, how you would have that race going. Also, if you really like this video, again, as I mentioned, make sure to hit like and click subscribe, as you'll get notified when I post more videos just like this one going forward. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.